Effective leadership, in my opinion, is almost an intangible of being able to get people, whether it's your peer group, people who report to you, to follow you and follow instructions and understand. And it's more, in my opinion, it's got to be collaborative. It's not a directive. I mean, if you're just giving directives, you're a manager.
You want leadership to be effortless. You don't want to use, force necessarily when you're leading a group of people. You want it to be collaborative in a way, and right, for it to be a team effort versus a power effort.
From my standpoint, looking at the best leaders are those who really are able to just take their entire teams and feel like they've got them all behind them, with everything they're doing in every way. So
it doesn't matter what your role is, and so that's going to your point, that you started with. It could be at any level, and I think leaders are at all levels of the organization, and they influence people to achieve something.
And I think all of us come to MBA school wanting to learn how to conquer the world and how to be CEO one day. And I think what that course really teaches you is, there's such thing as leadership at all levels. Right? You don't have to be, in that formal position. You could be a peer leader, you could be a subject matter expert leader. And a lot of that, frankly, played out in our 2 years as we, worked with the different people and different teams in each of our different courses.
Two words that came to mind were obviously influence and then what you talked about, right? Being authentic. Yeah. And I think that as leaders, we're constantly challenged, especially when we're talking to our teams, to make sure that what we ask them to do is authentic, and they could look to us as people and say, okay, I'm going to follow you because you're a real person, and if I wasn't here, you would be doing it.
The critical point is trust. It's building trust, having it, those directives come from an honest place, being, an organic development of conversations and directives. But, it's trust, it's coaching, and working with people to make sure that they're understanding, being clear, concise, but direct and honest in terms of what you expect and the deliverables required.
We're a school that really, at the end of the day, really pushes leaders out there who are trusted leaders, right? It's part of the from my standpoint, looking at it, thinking about the personality of the school.
It's also the way this whole program has been structured, right? You can't hide here.
Right.
So talk about trust and building trust amongst your peers is when you're at a school that only has 170, 180 students within that MBA class.
Agreed.
And even smaller. Let's not even talk about MSF or MAC, but you can't hide. And if you have to be yourself so people could trust you, so you could get through those 2 years. Because if you don't, you're not going to.
Right.
Agreed.
It used to be, and it still is at some B schools, that it's very cutthroat, very competitive, and it's never been that way at Owen. It's always had a strong focus on group work and succeeding as a team, and now that's so critical. It takes a lot of work to learn how to be an effective group member. Learning how to influence without authority is a real skill.
Right.
I mean, it's just a great environment and really fosters that collaboration, honesty, and candor that you don't always find every day. But I think the theme that I'm hearing is that it's given us all the confidence to go out into the workforce and really kind of bring that to everybody. It's contagious, but it allows us to be better at what we do and bring our teams up and foster kind of a similar environment as we had here. It's communication, I think, is a big part of that, and listening to what people want and just reaching out. I mean, we've stayed connected. I was given some advice years ago, and now I follow it almost to a T, is take your employees out to lunch, and you learn so much more about your team and what they really need, and just listening through 45 minutes, an hour. What a simple thing. And I really have. I've learned you get your pulse on what's going on in the organization, and it's not even, to me, it's not a leadership thing, it's listening. But I mean, again,
it all ties
together.
Leader, and you talked earlier, you both talked earlier about the importance of building trust. Well, how do you build trust? I mean, as a leader, that's not an easy thing to do. So taking people out to lunch and having casual conversations is one way to bring those barriers down. One of the things that I've learned since I left here that I wish I knew 20 years ago,
Right.
and I think current Owen students are learning, is that power of reflection.
Agreed.
It's not just managing down and up if you actually want to be successful. And so, even though group work, where you're formally in group work,
Right.
well, I really think that's part of how you learn it, but it's also this reflection. It's taking a step back and saying, what did I learn from this, good or bad, and what am I going to do about it going forward?
You're able to better communicate and coach your team, whether it's peers, whether it's those working for you, those managing you. When you're able to take that step back and reflect, you're better able to work with your team and build them up. And I really take to heart that a leader is one who really looks at the big picture, and I think Owen does a really great job of making sure that we do take that step back, look at the big picture. Derek, if I'm reviewing you, what's best for you and your progression, and really write that out. The higher you go up, the more diverse your skill set has to be. I mean, because you're ultimately a salesperson for your vision, for the product, for people to believe in themselves and work. I mean, you've got to do your HR. You've got to do a little bit of everything, because you can't just, HR-wise, you can't just raise your hand and say, HR.
It doesn't need to be done.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's not me, it's sales. You've got to be able to do all of it to manage those people, and that's the diversity of coursework has really, I think, made us a stronger alumni group when we go into the workforce because of that.
But recognizing as a leader what your strengths are, and then surrounding yourself with people who have the things you don't, is so huge.
And so that as a leader, it's becoming increasingly critical that we not only have all the things we've talked about, but that we also value differences, that we're able to take a step back and think about the fact that, well, I may have a biased lens, I may not be looking at this objectively, and I think that learning agility, that ability to be resilient, to be reflective, to learn from your experiences, to be open to other experiences, is critical.
To be a real leader, you can't have an ego, because you have to communicate with so many people and kind of transition your message to make the same point, but so that it's heard by every level.
Until you mentioned this, I didn't really think too much about it, but you talked about these circles that are created within Owen, and we build these bonds as almost family, and we take it to the workplace. Yeah. And we know that that's an effective way to lead an organization.
There's a diversity in terms of what we do here at Owen that makes us very unique, and so it's a different approach. There's not an entitlement that comes from graduating from Owen, right? It's every day you get out there and you earn it. You earn the respect of those who work for you.